Good morning. China is already the world's largest producer of farmed fish and has a large industry for growing lobsters. But it's not nearly enough to meet demand, and so China is the largest importer of lobsters. Previously, China's biggest sources were Australia, Canada, and the United States. But now those supply chains are being scrambled up, and lobster fishermen in Canada are getting hit. Earlier this year, China put high tariffs on imports of Canadian lobster, and President Trump threatened to do the same thing for lobster heading to the United States market. Lobster prices dropped immediately. Canadian exports of lobster to China have disappeared almost completely. This company is in Hong Kong and was previously a major buyer of Canadian lobster for the mainland Chinese market, and they just stopped. There are also no workarounds or rerouting possible here to get around the tariffs, like we see sometimes for manufactured goods, because shellfish are highly regulated with respect to cold storage and transport and freshness. The new Chinese tariff at 25% plus the VAT of 13% just made Canadian lobster uncompetitive. So buyers shifted to Australia or producers here in Asia. Australia was recently allowed to resume their exports to China after a few years of being locked out. So Chinese imports from there are ramping up. But the biggest change is in Vietnam. These numbers are from 2024, and compared to 2023, lobster exports from Vietnam to China were up 33 times. Vietnam now accounts for 37% of total Chinese imports of lobster. Demand for lobster is growing like crazy in China, up huge, over 40% year over year. And this is a feature we see here again and again, that prices fall despite booms in demand. That means that even though demand is up big, available supplies are growing even faster than that 40% year-on-year number. And Vietnam is a driver of a lot of that. Production costs in Vietnam are just lower than from anywhere else. China doesn't produce nearly enough lobster to meet their own demand, but Vietnam is the next best thing. They're right next door, so shipping costs and time from Vietnam drop to almost nothing. Lobster can be delivered next day fresh from Vietnam to China, and at dramatically lower costs than shipping from Australia or North America. The tariff problems for Canada kicked off in February and March, when China's Commerce Ministry placed retaliatory tariffs on Canadian rapeseed, seafood, and pork. Those were in response to similarly sized tariffs that Canada had placed on Chinese electric cars, steel, and aluminum. The trade balance between China and Canada previously was very even, the most balanced in the world probably, and now both of those numbers are being driven lower. In the case of Canadian lobster, the loss to the industry so far through the 9 months since is $77 million Canadian. And the director of the Seafood Alliance in Nova Scotia is desperate for a diplomatic solution, fast, or the Chinese market will be forever gone to the fishermen there. President Trump did not follow through on his threat to put tariffs on Canadian lobster, which would have devastated the industry. But the damage is already done on the pricing side because of the 25% tariff on everything going to China. Lobster is less expensive than steak, which tells you how bad things are now in the seafood industry and how bad things are for buyers of beef. With the Chinese market gone, Canadian lobstermen are dependent on Trump's attention being on something else and on the health of the American economy. And that's in trouble too. Consumer confidence in the United States is at historic lows, similar to levels seen during the pandemic, and even lower than when the financial system blew up in 2008. This is Gansu, Jiuqian City. Be good.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the gentle, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy.